Good afternoon, St. Paul families. Welcome to this week's chapel service. I got my full quarantine hair going because I desperately need a haircut. So I got the hat on today, so not to scare anyone. Certainly missing you and hope that you are all doing well. And we'll share with you briefly today from the book of Romans, and we'll be looking at Romans chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. It's a continuation of our talk about suffering and how everyone is suffering, and it's all relative to each of you. It's what we talked about last week. So we looked at 1 Peter 5, verse 10. And then we talked about Romans 8:28, for we know that all things work for the good of those who love him. And that is something that we won't necessarily see immediately. Maybe you're seeing some of those things immediately, but most likely it'll be later to come. In today's verse, I'll try and bring it up here for you. We see this verse from Romans chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Now, I know I can't say, well, hey, you should just rejoice in your suffering, because every time you suffer, know that it's a good thing for you. I'm not like that. I don't think that. I don't enjoy suffering. I don't enjoy things that we are going through now or things that you will go through in the future. What this verse is trying to help us to understand is that there's a process to this, and we're in this process, and some of this is it's going to produce endurance for us. It's going to produce the ability to push through the next time you go through something difficult, and it's going to produce a character for you. I've often heard in the sports world that sports produces character. Well, I really think that sports reveals character, because sports, like much of life, is filled with ups and downs, and it's really the times that you're down that people get to see who you are. And we can't necessarily control what happens to us, but we certainly can control how we react, and that is a piece of building character, becoming who you are, becoming who God has shaped you to be. And you go through all these different times in your life, some good, some bad, and each one of them helps you for the next go around. I shared the story of getting cut from the basketball team last week. I would have never thought that I would have helped me in any way, yet here we are this time, a significant time later, and talking about something ripped away from us really quickly, and how that makes us feel. It's part of who I am. It produced endurance for me. It produces character. And then character produces hope. It gives us a sign of things to come. We talk a lot about this verse in the realm of what happens to you over 4 years at St. Paul High School. For some of you, it's a shorter amount of time. For some of you, it's a longer amount of time. Hopefully not too much longer. And then for some of you, it's very quick. But we're here to see you grow and to see you become the person that God has made you to be. And as a part of that, we're alongside you during this bad time, this time of suffering. But really, it's to point you back to Christ. We've been told to shelter in place. I remember that was a big terminology a couple weeks ago, and I know some of us are hoping that ends soon and we can get out and do all kinds of things. But I really like that term, shelter. And there's a verse in the book of Psalms, Psalm 91, verses 1 and 2, and it says, "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty." Wow. So if we abide in the Lord, so if we go to the Lord, if we seek him for our shelter. And then the good news there is, if we're supposed to shelter in place, well, the Lord is in this place. He is right here with us. And it's such a great feeling to know that he is with us and he is our shelter. He's where we can go. And then this verse 2 says, and I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. God is your refuge. He is your fortress. He is there for you in your times of trouble. And when you look at what may be there for you in the future and how things are going to happen and what's going to happen to you, because he is there, because he is our shelter, because he is our rock, that is why character can produce hope. As we grow as a person, as we grow in Christ, as we grow in him, and if we go through these difficult times and we go through these process, we really become closer to him. We draw close to him during good times. We draw close to him during bad times, especially. And I encourage you to know that he is your rock. He is your shelter. He is your fortress in your refuge. It is such great hope for me when I look in the down times to know that I have that shelter to go to, and my Father in heaven is waiting there for me. I have the great fortune of having a terrific dad, and I know that's not the experience for everyone. But I remember during dark times when I was a child, and I know as a parent now, my kids, and when I was a kid, when things really got bad, when I was scared or worried, or when something happened, or when things like the basketball team happened, it was my dad. My dad was my rock. My dad was my fortress, and I miss him terribly. It was probably been pretty entertaining during this time to have Mike Sherrill around. But I know that he is in the presence of the Almighty. And, I want nothing more than to be in the presence of the Almighty with all of you as well. So stay close to him, stay drawn to him. The hope that we have comes from him. And this time too will pass. And then there'll be something else that happens in your life that won't be great. And then there'll be something else. And then there'll be something else. And it's going to continue to come. But know that the Lord loves you and cares for you. Know that your St. Paul family loves you and cares for you. It doesn't matter when you graduate, how long that'll be, or when you don't come to St. Paul anymore, whatever that means. We will be here for you and happy to support you and love you. I hope that you have a great day and that you can rest well in the arms of the Almighty.